Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
Hey, it's me, Egbert. E-G-G-B-U-R-T. Check out my website at egbert.com. Now it's back to those two dudes who told me they would bring in big ratings. They better are their history. Here are Brad and John.
You know what? If Taylor Burks would let me run his campaign, he would be the next congressman from CD3. I'm telling you right now. The guy's blown it. I should be his campaign manager, and we would hit it out of the park. I'm telling you.
Well, you know what? Then I mean, he would naturally make enemies with real estate agents and other people. I mean, it'd be the cost of doing business, right, Brad?
I guess. Okay. Yesterday, all over the news, Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, the Shark Tank guy, was all over. I mean, I saw this everywhere. He was interviewed. Matter of fact, the interesting thing was he was interviewed on CNN, and the host, I'm not exactly who it was, he said at one point in time that she was an attorney. He referred to her as an attorney, and he had respect for her. But they went at it. They actually had sort of a somewhat heated interview where he essentially was saying, hey, watch out, business people. You've just had the shot across the bow with this deal with Trump and Letitia Jones, or was it, no, excuse me, Letitia James, and what's going on in New York, where a guy who is a business person, who has a lot of, real estate and a lot of businesses in New York, can have a $500 million or close to a $500 million a judgment against him. And there was no criminal activity. Matter of fact, none of the banks that he supposedly defrauded, the insurance companies he defrauded, ever said anything bad about the guy. It wasn't like he said, yeah, my house I've got a beautiful $1 million house at 123 Mockingbird Lane, and you show up and it's a trash dump. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is how you get nailed by bank fraud. It's not what he did. And I'm telling you, if you listen to what he is saying, he was essentially saying, look, business people, get smart. If you're in New York, get the hell out.
It reminds me, Brad, of during circa, was it 1992 or maybe it was 96, whatever in that era, when Ross Perot would talk about how NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, would create a, quote, giant sucking sound of all the companies and jobs moving down to Mexico. It reminds me of a mass exodus. Whether it happens or not remains to be seen, but an exodus of companies from New York down south. You mentioned yesterday moving to Tennessee, moving to other more business-friendly states where your freedom to operate is virtually insured. So it could be another giant sucking sound 2.0.
Well, Smith & Wesson moved to Tennessee, and I'm trying to think where Smith & Wesson was. Smith & Wesson were they in Massachusetts? These are all gun manufacturers. Remington moved from New York, a small city in New York, where they'd been for over 200 years.
Yeah, which is a long effing time.
Right, that's longer than we think of companies that have been around a long time, and you think like Anheuser-Busch. Well, add another century onto Remington, where they were in New York, and they moved to Georgia. And there was another one, I believe Glock is in Georgia as well, too. And you look at these states, and to a certain extent, you look at, like, for example, in the St. Louis area. Okay, I'll give you a perfect example. Once upon a time, Shelly and I, we had an office out at 70 and Lake St. Louis Boulevard. We were in what they call Inspire 70. It was like a, what do you call it, a WeWork kind of place. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, like a shared workspace type.
Shared workspace. And they were shutting it down, okay? So we had to move. So we had a piece of property we looked at in O'Fallon. We were going to try to buy and rehab. And it was interesting because you went to the city of O'Fallon, and they had a deal, and I have to tell you this, I still remember this very well. It was very impressive. You go to the city of O'Fallon and you say, look, I'm considering doing this at this location. And what they did was they scheduled everybody that had a say in that could happen or not. The fire department was there. The public works director was there. Blah, blah, blah. Everybody was there. And you had literally, they walked the building and said, well, you're going to have to do this, and and like the fire department would say, okay, well, this, you're going to have to do this, you're going to have to put in.
So instead of having to set up a dozen separate appointments,
exactly,
you can get it all done in one fell swoop.
Right, and they all were there at the same time, and they all, were like, okay, and they were essentially working together, which is somewhat of a unique concept.
Rare, very rare.
In government. But yet, when you talk to people who try to do something in St. Louis City, it's just the opposite. You get very little cooperation. And what's always crazy to me about this is that governments are looking to have people to come and live in their city, work in their city, and invest in their city by growing businesses, putting in plants, things like that. Okay? Most of the St. Charles County, communities, and to a certain extent Franklin County as well too, they get that, and they get that when you're possibly coming to town, they're going to do everything they can to help you out. Matter of fact, Len Pagano at a meeting I was at bragged about the fact that he said that that if in most cases from the day you show up at City Hall, to do all your application process to the day you get approved, typically it's 45 days. Which
is lightning quick.
Right. Now, that's not true of everything. If you want to put in like a 500,000 square foot warehouse system or something like that, obviously that's a different deal. But
that's a different thing. So, Brad, let me ask you this then. And again, as my perpetual disclaimer, the answer cannot be both. The reason why you cannot do that in St. Louis City, is it because of the longstanding practices and fiefdoms, or is it the talent level of the bureaucrats in St. Louis City?
Why can't it be both?
Well, because I'm asking you have to pick one or the other. What is the bigger factor? Do people who are talented choose to work in O'Fallon rather than St. Louis City, or is there just so much bureaucracy in the city that nobody will ever change it?
Well, I'm gonna give you a third answer because of the fact that my third answer is that when you say talented, and I don't mean to be besmirching people who work for the government, I say a lot of people that aren't that talented work for the government.
And the people, if you're in O'Fallon or St. Charles County and you have a lot of skill at that type of best practices or whatever, you're working at Energizer or Enterprise or any large corporation.
Well, but the whole point of it is that, let's be honest, a lot of people, and this is, I'm going to say the same thing. I'm going to group teachers into this as well, too, okay? And my teacher friends, or if they were listening, and they wouldn't.
They'll get mad. That's okay.
They'll get mad, okay? To the point where, what do they all talk about? They all talk about, oh, I don't get paid that much. But what's their goal? To work their 30 and retire. They come out of school at 22, 23, 24. They get a job. They work 30 years in the school district. They retire, and they're done. Okay, now, the other interesting thing about this is they all complain about the fact that I have teacher friends, and I've literally copied this article and sent it to several of my teacher friends. Don't give me that crap about you don't make any money. Look at Dave Ramsey, the top 5 millionaires in the United States. Number 3 is teacher. So if you're not making any money, how in the world is your job classification one of the top 5 millionaires?
Yeah.
Because of the fact that they retire and they get a great pension. And to the point where they may not like the job, but once again, like you hear this in certain things, like, for example, I have friends of mine that used to be in law enforcement. Their goal was you get in your 20. Matter of fact, I know a guy right now who I won't be too specific of, who is used to be in another career, got upset with that career, went into law enforcement. I talked to him about a year or so ago, and I say, how's it going? He says, another year and a half, and I'm out. And I go, what? He goes, yeah, I'm retired in 20 years. I can retire in 20 years. He's now an officer, not just like a patrolman, but he's like, sort of management in a local police department. And when he retires, he's going to be, 55, 56, 57. And his wife is already a real estate agent. He's going to sell real estate with her. Because
Well, at least he's not retiring, because as you've often pointed out, it's a leading cause of death in the United States.
Well, it is. The number one cause of death in the United States is retirement. Anyway, I'm just saying what frustrates me is like, for example, last week we have the situation with Missouri House and Senate, okay? They take Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off. They take Wednesday off because of the fact that that's the parade in Kansas City, okay? You can't come back to work on Thursday?
It's Hangover Day, Brad. It's National Hangover Day.
I don't care. I mean, once again, if I'm having heart surgery, I don't want that doctor saying, "Boy, did I have a bender last night." You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I want a guy who sees, like, for example, I am a perfect example of that. I had surgery once upon a time, and I won't mention the doctor's name, but I had surgery once upon a time that didn't go well, and they didn't knock me out. I was under a local anesthetic, okay? It was, let me be more specific, it was eye surgery. And he starts the surgery, and it goes terribly wrong, and the doctor says, OS blank blank T, okay? It's never a good thing when you're being operated on, and the doctor says, OS
And
blank
were you
blank
conscious?
T. Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, to the point where you want the best of the best of the best. See, and what's crazy to me is that I'm going to take this one step further. This is what I've never understood about unions, okay? When you're in a union, the whole idea behind a union is if you're a carpenter, Jim the carpenter, Brad the carpenter, John the carpenter, we're all skilled craftsmen, okay? But yet, you, as a carpenter who knows carpentry, knows that Bill is really the best carpenter on the job, and that Jason is the worst carpenter on the job. He can, if he puts a nail into a board and he misses the nail 3 times, it's a good day because normally he misses the nail 5 times with his hammer, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, but the union will say, we're all the same. We're all the same skill. No, you're not. There's good guys and there's bad guys. But see, what's interesting to me is you listen to ESPN 101 or Fans 590, you listen to the calls, there's a bunch of those guys that are union guys. And what are they saying? Hey, get rid of that guy. He's terrible. Throw him out. He's no good.
Oh, yeah. I get what you're saying.
But yet, if you showed up at the job site and you were supervising, let's say, 10 union carpenters, and the one guy is doing terrible work and the other 2 guys have to go over and redo his work, if I said to him, hey, get rid of that guy, fire that guy, he's a terrible carpenter, they go, no, you can't. He's in the union. We're all good. Get what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's the downside of collective bargaining. It's like in a classroom, you would teach to the lowest common denominator. You're going to be protecting the lowest common denominator workers.
Exactly. It's the hypocrisy of we're all equal because it's not the case. And why do you have why is the conversation now after 3 Super Bowl wins, 2 in a row, Patrick Mahomes is the next GOAT. He's the next, and the interesting thing is already they're saying he's the next GOAT. He's better than Tom Brady. Tom Brady won, 7 Super Bowls?
Yeah, something like that. I don't know how many rings he has. Or let's talk about Joe Montana.
Once again, Joe Montana, people like that. Patrick, I think he's an incredible quarterback. He's got a little ways to go still. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or from your era, Y.A. Tittle. Remember Y.A. Tittle?
We went to school together. What are you talking about?
I don't know if he actually won any Super Bowls. I do know he was an old-timey quarterback, though.
That's right. That's where, I don't know if I told you this or not. When I played high school football, we still used the leather helmets.
Well, my favorite line from Bill Clay Sr. was when one time he was talking about President Gerald Ford, and he just said that Gerald Ford played football too many times without a helmet.
Well,
which I thought was one of the more creative insults that you could levy toward a politician.
After you said what did you say? Give me the Taylor Burks line. What did he say about Mary Louise Coleman? What did he say about
Mary
her?
Elizabeth?
Mary Elizabeth.
Oh, that she lives closer to Illinois than she does to the 3rd district.
What a great line!
It's a pretty good line. By the way, have no idea if that's factual or not. I'm guessing Taylor probably did the math there.
I think if she lives, if she lives
she lives in Arnold, that's a possibility.
Right. If you live in Arnold, you're right there.
You're pretty close. You're pretty close to Illinois.
You're right there because of the fact that there's the Merrimack on, because when you go south on 55, you cross over Arnold, you're in the Merrimack River, you're in Jefferson County, and Arnold's right there at the Mississippi.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, there are places that I knew somebody that lived down in Arnold, lived in the not so good part of Arnold, and it flooded all the time because I can't remember if that was from the Merrimack or the Mississippi.
Well, did they get a check from the government after their house flooded?
I don't know. You know what? I think the only reason they got a check from the government was that some illegal immigrants moved in. So,
yeah,
so they
got at least $10,000 for registering every illegal immigrant, right. And they got a free phone too,
right?
Which would not be hacked because maybe it wasn't on the AT&T network.
And by the way, we didn't talk about that. My AT&T phone is still down. AT&T's having a national.
You're kidding me.
No, it's still down. On my little word, like my little bars should be. It's SOS, which means it's.
Wow. Yeah. So it could make an emergency call in theory, I guess.
I don't. Here, hold on a minute. We're coming at the time of the. Let me see if I can even make a call out. I'll try this. Let me see if I can do it. I'll just pull. I'll do recent. I'll do this. I'll try.
Are you calling Ed Golderman?
Hold on. I'm gonna see what happens here. Nothing right now. It just says calling. So yeah, literally, I'm dead in the water. It doesn't work. Boy. What, this is going to be interesting. What if this is a hack, something like that?
It could be. It could. Again, it's the same people that broke into Francis Howell, I bet.
We have to get out of here.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?